Welcome to the Table Podcast series with Bridget Johnson. Each month, we give you game-changing conversations about K-12 education and leadership. Join us as top educators, field experts, and administrators share actionable strategies to transform your school community. Let's dive in.
Welcome to The Table, the podcast where student life professionals, educators, and changemakers come together to share stories, insights, and ideas for building communities where everyone belongs. I'm your host, Bridget Johnson. Today, I'm excited to welcome Belle Linda Halpern. Belle is an executive coach, leadership development expert, and the founder of Inspiring Educators, where she helps teachers, school leaders, and mission-driven professionals strengthen their leadership presence, communication, and emotional intelligence. She co-founded the Ariel Group, co-authored the book Leadership Presence, and has spent more than 30 years teaching leaders how to communicate with authenticity, clarity, and heart. She's brought this work to school systems, business schools, Fortune 500 companies, and educators all over the world. Today, we're talking about how leaders can make teachers feel truly seen, how Jen is reshaping communication norms, and how Belle's theater-informed leadership framework, including roles like captain, conceiver, champion, and collaborator, can help us show up with more flexibility, presence, and connections in our schools. And because this episode launches in the new year, it feels like the perfect moment to talk about fresh starts, new energy, and how we can lead with more humanity and resonance in 2026. Welcome to the show, Belle. Happy New Year, and how are you?
Thank you so much, Bridget. So happy to be here. I am well. Great to be in the new year.
Great to be in the new year. So we're going to just jump right in. Belle, I love to start with your story. What pulled you into the work of leadership presence and communication? And was there a moment when you realized that the theater lens could fundamentally change the way leaders connect?
It's a great question, Bridget. And there's probably several answers to it, but I'll start early and then I'll jump around.
Fair enough.
I think my first inspiration towards leadership was my own family. My parents started a kind of revolutionary Montessori school in Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Awesome.
Yeah. And when I was like 8 years old, I remember my parents coming to me and telling me about the night where the parents of the school made a human ring around the school and stayed up all night so that during the Newark riots of 1967, the school would not get burned down.
Wow.
And I just was really moved by that, by my parents' commitment and by the possibility to collaborate and make things happen. And I also, lived that experience of going to that school as a really little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of image of holding up a community in face of challenge has stayed with me. Then I shifted gears. I became a performer, singer and actress. And I was in New York and I was having a hard time trying to climb the ladder. And I got a really big opportunity. I was performing at New York's Town Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was the day of the show. And I was watching TV, getting ready at home. And I saw that there had been an earthquake in Santa Cruz, California.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, Sam, went to Santa Cruz.
Oh, my goodness.
So we couldn't reach him, calling my mother, my father, radios telling us and the TVs telling us, serious damage, massive earthquake, and couldn't reach him. It's 7:00. I'm going to the theater. It's 7:30.
Right.
I'm backstage. I'm standing next to this red velvet heavy curtain and the spotlight's coming towards me and I can see the dust in the spotlight and I'm walking on stage and, something was really different.
Mm.
And in that moment, I realized that although what I thought was important to me about, being famous, being able to have a career really wasn't as important to me as that my brother was okay, that Sam was okay, and that I really wanted to touch people with my voice. And I think, I sang that night and it was really different. And I had a shift in there was an earthquake inside of me. And I had like a realization that instead of being about ambition, I wanted to be more about service. So I knew that I wanted to use my theater skills, but figure out a way to help people with them. And a little while after that, I started the Ariel Group, which was a corporate company teaching leadership skills using theater. And I got some of the ideas from that from a professor when I was at Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Mark Rittenberg, and really gave me the idea that you could use theater skills and acting skills as kind of a technology to teach leadership.
Wow,
And
what an image you've created. Like, I can't even guess. Still, I'm thinking about the heavy red curtain and the spotlight. I'm still there, Belle. That was such a image that you painted for us. And so I'm sorry to interrupt, but I gotta know, like, was your brother okay? Like, what
oh,
happened?
thank you for asking.
Like,
Thank you for asking.
what
Yes,
happened?
right. 12 hours later, we learned that he was fine. He was
Okay,
sort of
all
shaking
right.
and scared, but he was fine. He's fine. He's very well today. I just saw my
Okay,
nephew
great.
yesterday.
It's like, what happened?
Oh my God. I'm sorry I missed
Oh,
that important
no, it's okay,
ending.
but I'm looking, I'm imagining all of this. I'm thinking about how you've changed. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, was he okay? So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you.
Yes. No, no, no.
Keep
Beautiful.
going.
So then I was teaching in leadership and in Fortune 500 companies and a lot of
Hmm.
consulting firms and financial services. And then getting to travel around the world, it was a big gift. And I was still singing and doing my cabarets,
Uh-huh.
theater work. And then I realized that I really wanted to go back to my first love, which was education. So
Okay.
in 2012, I sold the Ariel Group and I started a nonprofit in 2014 called Inspiring Educators. And our work there is using that same basket of skills around leadership development, but working with principals, aspiring principals, other leaders in schools, and teachers, all levels of the education environment, but really helping people with how do they show up and how do they create relationship and build connection, authentic connection with their audience in a way that will build student success.
Awesome.
And
I love that. And what a not a circuitous route, but a very interesting
yeah,
one, and it brought you back to education, which
yeah,
oftentimes it brings us back there. And so, and you spent decades developing leaders across education, business, and mission-driven organizations. Where do you see leaders struggling most when it comes to being present, being expressive, or reaching others in meaningful ways?
but I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of the question. Where do I see leadership
Where do you see leaders struggling most when it comes to
struggling?
being
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
present, being expressive, or reaching others in meaningful ways?
Oh, there's so many ways that it shows up, but one thing today is that there's such an overload of information coming towards everyone, and there's so much stress that
Yes.
both the I think the brain kind of sabotages you if you allow it to, and you get kind of one pointed and only about what needs to get done right now, and you lose sight
Mhm.
of people in front of you. So I think one of the things that people really struggle with is the ability to, in the midst of all the things that need to get done, to really keep relationships and being present in the moment in the forefront. Because really, you're getting everything done through relationships. So if you don't keep
Right.
those strong, then you get stuck.
Absolutely. And so you wrote a book, Leadership Presence. Tell me about that process and that journey. Like, what made you decide, okay, let's do a book?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo! Let's see. It was the same year that I was pregnant. I had a baby, so I was doing a lot of birthing things.
Nice.
um, I wrote it with my business partner, Kathy Lubar, and we had a wonderful relationship. She and I were both actors, and we took the work we understood in the theater and performing world and applied it to leaders in organizations. And we just kept getting questions from our clients like, is there something we can take home? And,
Mm,
we had workbooks, but we wanted to be able to use the stories we were learning from all of our clients and hearing across all different industries and a lot of the same stuff. And what we realized was there was kind of a model we were working with, and we didn't start out with a model, but we
mhm,
over time realized, okay, what we're really working on with people is four things. We're working on helping them be present, and
mhm.
which is the first four letters of the word presence. So being present, how do you get yourself in the moment the way an actor does? And then the R is the relationship building. How are you both building relationships with people so they feel seen, heard, and valued? And how are you getting the work done through collaborative relationships? And then sort of the most obvious parallel with the theater world is being expressive. So we
Mm.
do a lot of work in sort of teaching people about storytelling and about the capacity to use your voice and your body and your eyes and your words to get the message
Yes.
across. And I think when I started in this business many years ago, there was much more the idea that you could just communicate from your brain, from up here to someone else's brain. And now we know that that really doesn't work. People need to
Right.
be communicated the heart and the head at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's really hard to listen. So the being expressive was part of that. And then the last piece that has become more and more important over time is like the S for self-knowing. So,
Mm,
the danger of being present and building relationship and being expressive without self-knowing is that can just feel fake, and of course, the danger of teaching acting skills is people think, my worst fear would be that somebody walks out of a workshop that I'm teaching and they say, oh, yeah, she was teaching us how to fake being authentic. That's not
right.
what I'm doing. So the self-knowing piece, getting people to look at what are the experiences that have made them who they are, what are
Mm-hmm.
the values that they're living, what are the values that they want to continue to really hold dear as leaders, and then if they don't hold those values dear, own it and apologize. You know,
Absolutely.
all of that is so important in leadership, and that's the basis on which presence rests.
I love that. And so you also describe presence as the ability to connect authentically, and that word authentic is super important with the
Yeah.
thoughts and feelings of others in order to motivate and inspire them. And so when you think about educators, especially teachers and deans, why is presence such an essential leadership skill right now?
So there's so much there. And I want to make one caveat that, I've recognized over the years teaching in schools and teaching in schools where there's a predominance of people of color
Hmm.
is that this whole question of authentic connection is really different depending on where you sit. And,
Sure.
if you're a person of color in a leadership role, it can feel like you are in a crooked room, and the ability to choose authenticity is in some ways a privilege. Like, how much can you be your authentic self in different rooms?
Right.
And that's something I've definitely been aware of, and is part of recognizing how we can build our presence. And of course, the more power you have, the more you create the room and you create the level of authenticity that can be in the room. So that's the gift of working with people who are leading schools is they're creating a culture to some extent. Um, so this whole question of how you're building those relationships, particularly for teachers and deans who are working with students, students are like radars for authenticity. So
Absolutely.
you've got to figure out how to show up in a way that they're going to be trusting of you. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's very hard for them to listen at all.
And if
um,
they're listening, they're not connecting. If they're not connecting, are they really learning? And so all of that's really important.
I think that's such a piece of it. And also, as the students become the young leaders, the
Mhm.
Gen Z, people who are trying to lead Gen Z, um, there is a need for being real and also helping those young people, young leaders, um, get the why of what you're asking them to do. Because I think my generation and the generations in between, I think we were more willing to just like be good
Accept.
soldiers.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that Gen Z is more like, "Excuse me, can you please tell
Yeah.
me why I'm supposed to do that?"
Yep.
And it can be frustrating, but it's
Mhm.
also a gift because everybody is more productive when they are connected to mission. When people
Absolutely.
can feel, and also in this culture where it's so stressful, like everybody gets so burnt out, that if we can remember that one of our jobs as a leader is to keep people connected to school's mission and to people's individual mission and why they are there, because that fuels them and our
Yes.
ability to show up in a very challenging landscape.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so, also, a big part of your work right now is helping leaders make teachers feel seen, not just
Mhm.
evaluated and judged, but genuinely valued. And you said that earlier, seen, heard, and valued, just so important. What does that look like in practice? And how can leaders communicate in ways that restore the sense of dignity and recognition for teachers? And that word dignity for me, it's not something that I'd used earlier, before I'm getting my master's in restorative practices, and that's a word that's used kind of early and often. And that's not a word that I had used in my daily. I hadn't really thought about the word dignity. It almost feels like, I don't know, more formal and like, you're dignified and you're older. I don't know. It just, but all of a sudden, like that word is, super important to me right now, and has really kind of caused me to look at things differently. And so I wonder, if that word dignity
Mm.
has the same connotation for you. And like now I've asked you 17 questions. Sorry about that. But that word dignity really, it just kind of all of a sudden was like, kind of struck me. And so I wondered if that word had
Yeah.
the same effect on you.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a beautiful word. It's not a word that I've used a lot either. Um, but I think it speaks to how teachers need to feel because
Hmm.
they are really doing the heavy lifting. And
Absolutely.
the danger for administrations is that they are just thinking of teachers like cogs in the wheel to get the students to learn.
Yep.
And, we've got to treat the adults with the care to make them stay in their seats and
Yes.
to care about, have them have, and really not just make them feel cared for, but actually care for them. You know,
Right.
I have a daughter who is teaching in Chicago. She went through TFA, Teach for
Uh-huh.
America. And, it's a big wake up call for me to be like on the front lines watching what's happening to her. And I see it day to day, like, the administration has such a role. The principal can have such a role in making teachers feel seen, heard, and valued. And when you
Yes.
ask day to day, how do you restore dignity? I think part of it has to do with in those one-on-one meetings when a principal or a dean has the opportunity to sit in on a class or to have a one-on-one with a teacher. It's really important to not just go right to feedback, but
Right.
go, start with, first of all, checking in with the teacher. How are they feeling? How are things going? And then listening and acknowledging and making sure the teacher feels that you're listening and
Yes.
acknowledging. And one of the things that we work a lot with is, I think often in leadership roles, you start listening in order to solve problems.
Absolutely.
And of course, that's valuable, definitely
Yep.
valuable. But what listening in order to build relationship, in order to restore dignity, that has to do with listening for someone's strengths and listening for their values and naming that. So, if
Hmm.
you're talking to a teacher and they're talking about a problem of practice, before you get to trying to solve the problem, you might want to say, wow, I can really see that you have a very strong way of communicating that problem in a way that I really get it. Or I can see it took courage to confront this issue. I really appreciate you bringing it up with me. So that
Yes.
kind of really naming the strength of the person in front of you. And then if you can, connecting, and I see how much you value fairness in your classroom and how much you value that every kid gets seen. And then trying to connect their values to the mission, your mission and their mission in the school can, just be like a wonderful way of wrapping up both relationship and getting things done.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that. What I sometimes say is leading with connection, not correction.
Yeah,
Gotta make sure that you're leading and connecting with those folks first before
right.
you kind of jump into correction. Same with students. And I talk about that with dean of students. And so a dean walked out in the hallway and a kid's doing something they shouldn't be doing. The natural response is to lead with correction. Stop doing that, right?
Right.
But if you lead with connection first, I think things go a little bit differently,
Right. I
and
mean,
relationship can be built.
I'm just so aware that even in like personal life, day to day life as an adult, I have someone in my life who's having a really hard time, and I want to just like give him advice,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really work. I have to remember, they're going to come visit me, and I got to just build relationship first before my words will go into completely non-listening ears unless
Yeah.
they feel like I care and that I want to build relationship first.
Absolutely, so important. And so, we've mentioned the word burnout. I think everyone's kind of using that term these days. It's a hot button topic for sure.
Yeah.
And so, when you're working with educators who feel burned out or disconnected, what do you hear underneath the surface? What do teachers most need from adults leading them? And I think we
Mm.
kind of already talked about that a little bit, but
Well, I mean, I think I think there's 2 things or maybe 3 things. One
uh
is they need to feel acknowledged and they need to feel seen for the incredibly hard work they're doing. So that's one. But, just naming it isn't really enough.
right.
So I think there's also like listening to them and what their needs are. I mean, some of the things that I hear over and over from teachers is they really care about the kind of PD they're getting. professional development, and they would
Absolutely.
rather have sometimes collaboration time with other teachers. They would also like time off,
Yes.
that is that the day is exhausting. And so it's really important that when we're delivering professional development and really trying to make a difference for teachers, that we do it in a way that's enlivening. I think some of the things that I hear about inspiring educators that works for teachers is that they are really building relationships in the workshops. And I think relationships are healing. If we can feel seen by somebody else in front of us and there's a connection made, it's like there's a way we can breathe easier.
Mm,
If there's a way that during burnout times, A, people feel acknowledged, B, they get some time off, and C, they get relationship and kind of reconnection both to their own mission and connection to the others around them, that can make a big difference. But I think the main thing is not to forget that, I feel like this whole no excuses model in
yeah,
school,
yes.
it got us into like using the teachers and for success for the students, as opposed to recognizing that we need to treat the adults with love and care and create social emotional well-being for the adults in the room in order for them to go ahead and do that for students.
Absolutely. It starts with the adults first. It's so
Yeah.
important. And so, one of the things that we talked about earlier and, earlier today, but also in our other conversations is about how Gen Z is shifting communication norms from, directness to values and alignment and like, asking questions, being curious about the why. And so how is the communication landscape changing in general for educators and leaders, in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this has been changing for a while, but I think command and control doesn't work. It's really hard. I mean, there is a need. I was thinking about this as I was getting ready for this interview. Is the question of when you're talking to a big group, there
Hmm.
is a need for helping people feel a sense of safety and direction. So, safety and direction do come from clarity, sort of the energy of the captain, like, okay, this is what needs to get done. This is what we're doing, folks. That can be helpful sometimes, especially in times of, extreme danger or in times when something just needs to get done fast.
Hmm.
Um, I think once we're in one-on-one relationships or small groups, there is so much more of a need for the leader being willing to shift gears and be not the captain and command and control, but rather be collaborating in the mix, championing others so they feel seen, heard, and valued. And then sometimes another thing that the leader can do is, rather than this is what needs to get done, tell a story of the future, really
Mm.
give a vision of what things could look like that Gen Z people can really glom onto and like want that. So if they can be connected to mission and their own mission vision, that's one piece. And then I think the reality is there's a lot more wish for life balance and a
Yes.
lot more recognition that just work, 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 work doesn't
Doesn't
is
cut
all
it.
working the same. And
Doesn't cut it anymore.
so that's a big, and that's hard in education because you kind of, when you have the kids in the building, you kind of got to be there with them from 7 to 4 or whatever it is.
Yep.
So how do you create those moments of breathing room for adults? I think it's we're in a challenge where the leaders can help, but it's also the whole system um, needs some
Need some tweaking.
revitalization.
We're gonna use that word. We'll use tweaking
Tweaking,
for
okay,
right now. So, Bill, you talked about theater a little bit early on, and so I love the idea how Inspiring Educators brings theater into this. And so, it's a theater-based framework to communication, presence, emotional connection, reading the room, which, oh my gosh, can we just talk about reading the room? Some
Yes,
people forget how important that is.
right.
Well, talk about how these theatrical tools can help leaders communicate more effectively.
So if we just go with that reading the room piece, often what happens to leaders is you go into a meeting and like you're really clear on your 1, 2, 3 things you got to get across. And then if you look in the room and you see like deer in headlights or people kind of not with
Rolling their
you,
eyes or
yeah, all of that. That means whoa, 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 I got to change gears. And I think people can, unfortunately, first of all, be so busy, and second of all, be so mission driven. in a positive way sometimes, that we get blinders on and we forget
Right.
that the mission happens through people. And so we've got to get our minds clear on building relationships with these people in the room are what's going to get me towards the things that we all want to get done for our students and for the world and for the next generation. So
Yeah.
I think, some of the theater metaphors that can help, one of them is that we got to play different roles. Within a meeting, I may change gears several times. So, I could start the meeting with welcoming people, and that can be like an intention that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere in that same meeting, I might really need to challenge people. I need to like warn them of what's going to happen if we don't do so and so. And then another point in the meeting, I might want to really reassure people that we have the right people on the bus. And I might, at another point in the meeting, want to excite them and, paint a picture of something that will really get their juices going. So when I'm doing those different intentions, I sometimes call them passionate purposes, that my face and my voice and my eyes are going to be saying different things. And that's, one of the things that actors work with is subtext. What's underneath the word? What am I? So what I sometimes encourage leaders to have different verbs in their minds for, like, so a verb is, how do I want to X my audience? How do I want to inspire them? How do I want to warn them? How do I want to reassure them? Those are these different intentions or passionate purposes that we can have. And so that's like within the course of one meeting.
Yes.
And then there's also thinking about within the course of a day or a week, there are times when I need to be really championing somebody, and that's one kind of energy. And then another time when I need to step back and really be either a collaborator or a listener, or maybe I am stepping back and then I'm going to listen for a while and then I'm going to come forward with a vision, with a story, with a conceiving the future for people. And that energy of the person sharing stories about the future is really different from the energy of a person who's in there working or who is in command and control captain mode. So the recognizing that we all play roles all the time, that it's not fake to play roles. Like, we, all of us talk to our grandmother differently from how we might talk to our children.
Right.
We show up differently in different situations. And so recognizing that, and then recognizing where is it that we default to that can, under stress, and that can sometimes get us in trouble. And then what are the other roles that we need to develop further within ourselves? So like for me, I am kind of a natural captain. And it took me a while to figure that out. What, you can figure it out based on when people get upset with you. What do they tend to get upset with you about? So, I used to do a big Seder Jewish meal once a year, and my relatives and my family started saying to me, when you're getting us ready for that meal, you are like really hard to deal with. And I was like, oh, that's where I go when I'm stressed, like really, I get really intense. So I realized, and there's several things that I needed to do once I realized that. One was figure out what are the other roles that I need to develop more. And then also even make sure there's people around me who are really good at some of the other roles. So I was lucky enough in my business partnership with Kathy Lubar at the Ariel Group that I was more the captain and she was more the collaborator. So she was much more, and she was much better at getting groups to brainstorm together and, having people working together and being more comfortable with the process of collaboration, which takes a long time. So if you're somebody who's like, let's get things done, it can be harder.
Yes.
So both developing myself the sides that are not as easy for me, and then also recognizing, I'm not going to be everything to everybody. So making sure I have people around me who also are strong at some of the areas which are not my highest strengths.
Your strong suit. So, so that's a great segue into my next question, because in Leadership Presence, you outlined the 4 leadership roles: captain, conceiver, champion, collaborator, and a couple we just talked about, as points along the continuum between asserting authority and responding to others. And drawing from your flexibility model. But can you give listeners a quick overview of these 4 roles and what they reveal about leadership style so that they understand?
Sure. So one, basic idea is that we all play all these roles all the time.
Mm-hmm.
and that there's usually one that's more like where we default to under stress or is sort of easier for us. And but it's not like that is our style. Like even though I just said that the captain is kind of easiest for me, I'm not a captain all the time at all. So there's recognizing where kind of you live, and then
Mm-hmm.
so the captain is more like this is what we're doing, folks. Let's make sure we get it done. And then the conceiver is more like describing the future and painting a picture and getting people to want to come because of the picture you're painting. So that whole skill of storytelling is really
Mm-hmm.
important in the conceiver realm. And
Okay.
thinking about the future and being able to describe it in ways that will be exciting for people. And then the champion is so important in schools today. It's just, really making people feel seen, heard, and valued. I feel like we've been really talking about that is so central. And then the collaborator is both getting in there and working with people so they see that you are not just the distant leader. And then also creating the conditions under which people can collaborate. So, for me, sometimes since I'm not a really, really natural collaborator, I've got to go, okay, so I want to let everybody know we're going to work right now on thinking through this problem. And there's going to be an executive committee that's going to make the final decisions. So if I let people know that what we're doing and then where it's going to go eventually, that helps me feel like I'm not just on a runaway train.
I
So
love that.
different ways of and it's also figuring out like how do I get comfortable with this stuff that's not easy for me. And some of
Yeah.
it is like modeling others, noticing. I was talking about my business partner Kathy,
Mm-hmm.
noticing what she's good at and like practicing that. We do become it is amazing how much we can make a difference by noticing small steps and actually practicing different roles that we don't do all the time. We can get better.
So I think I know the answer to this question already, but for the person who's like, oh my gosh, like I have so many things to do. Now I got to add this to my plate. Like, how in the world am I supposed to be so self-aware? How am I like putting on these different hats and being all these different people and recognizing what's happening in the room? Like, I don't think I can do it. Help. Where do you start?
That's a great question. I mean, and I think what's really important here is to keep like reversing the question like, wow, if I can do a little bit of work on how I come across, it's going to make the what I do and what I get done so much better.
Okay.
Um, so just really remembering that. And then I think some of those small things we can do are just like before a meeting, as we go into the meeting, how do I want this person to feel? Not just what I want to get done, but how do I want them to walk out of the room? And what can I do to help them feel good about themselves or recognize what they're doing that's working? So that just always having that lens. And a very easy one is that listening for strengths and values. If you can be listening to somebody and before you go into before you go into problem solving, let's redo that because I just said that
Okay.
backwards. So, um, so one of them is this whole idea of listening for strengths and values. So when someone comes into your office, if you can, before you go into problem solving, first sit back, acknowledge what you heard as their strengths or as their values, and then go into it. So, someone's talking about a curriculum change. Before you start brainstorming about curriculum or giving your opinion about curriculum, first you say, I can really see that you have put a lot of thought into this
Mm,
and that I see that your analysis was really strong. There's just giving some positive right away before you go into the problem solving.
I
That's
love
one
that.
simple thing people can do. And then in terms of the roles, I know what you mean. It can feel like it's an overlay. I think it's recognizing that we're doing it all the time. And
Okay.
then just saying to myself, okay, if I know that I'm a little bit more of a captain, then I have to know that I've got to practice some of these championing skills more. If I know that I'm more of a collaborator champion, then I got to say, okay, that at the end of the meetings, I might want to make sure that I give people clarity about direction and what's needed because
That's great.
that does not serve people. If they come out of a meeting with you as a leader and you have not given them clarity about what's next,
Not helpful.
yeah.
Not helpful at all. So many of the strategies in your book, grounding, breath work, slowing down, connecting emotionally before problem solving, feel especially relevant in schools
Mm,
today.
yeah.
Which of these practices do you see making the biggest difference for educators? Is there one? I
Ha
feel
ha
like
ha
they're all
ha.
of them.
I mean, I think I could say that there's two. I mean,
Okay.
I think because of the level of information overload and stress and challenge in our world, I think we do need to learn practices to get out of the fight or flight brain.
Mm,
It's very easy to get stuck in feeling like, when you're in that state of, oh my God, it is very hard to think and it is very hard to change behaviors. It's very hard to build relationship. And so figuring out for yourself, one really important thing is having practices to get you into the present moment and out of that self-sabotage. It's when the amygdala, the limbic center of your brain, takes over, and it takes
hmm
over for good reason when it thinks you're in great danger. But the problem is that we're often not in that amount of danger, but our brain thinks that we are.
Yes.
So things like breathing, I mean, just being able to take a good deep breath and learning how to get, when you take a deep breath, it takes you out of the fight or flight place and gets you into the frontal cortex. So then you can think. And
Ah, yes.
it's a big shift. And we do a lot of work with leaders on what are the practices. And there's a lot of brain science now about the physical practices that can make such a difference.
Yes.
Even just like turning in your chair so that you see what's behind you
Huh.
and then you come back, that often that says to your brain, oh, there's no danger in my peripheral vision. So we are animals. And so that can actually start our breathing into the more relaxed,
Interesting. I like that. It-
parasympathetic mode. So that's one, is the breathing and all kinds of physical, just like if you're feeling overwhelmed, get up and walk around.
yes.
Move your shoulders around. Our bodies are amazing tools at relaxing us. So that's one. And then the other is what we've been talking about in terms of listening. I feel like
hmm
in leadership roles, listening and acknowledging and making people feel seen are just so powerful today and so needed. And, not then there's the next piece is giving them flexibility and time. But first of all, making them feel like you care and that they're seen. And I have another thought, but I said two, so we'll stay there.
No, no. I mean, if you've got one more, give it to us.
Well, I think the other big piece is allowing oneself to be known,
Mm,
to be able to share with people who are working for you. Why is
mm.
it that you lead? What is important for you? What are the stories that have made you who you are? Because sometimes if you share your
Why?
origin experiences, say that again,
Your why?
your why, yeah, it helps other people start thinking about their why. And if
hmm
everybody has more of a sense of why, it's one of the things that can fuel us and keep us energized in the danger burnout zone.
Yeah. And so I think all of those things, Belle, point to us just slowing down a bit. And it is so hard to get people to do that when they feel like I've got this to do list, I've got things that have to be accomplished. Like there's so much on around me. I don't feel like I can just take a beat or take a deep breath. I have to kind of go, go, go. I just feel like we really just, if we can get people to just kind of slow down for a minute, that's half the battle, I think.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think what's so scary about it is when you feel like you have so much to do, it feels like slowing down is like a failure, where
Yes,
actually,
yes.
actually it's the beginning of success, because really we can't do our best work in that state. That's just go, 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 go,
Absolutely.
go, go, go.
And no one really thinks about it in that way. And I love the fact that you bring up the F word because people, especially that's that internal dialogue that's happening for leaders a lot of times. Like they don't want to be seen as incompetent, as failures, as someone who's not a good leader. And so because of that, they have to go all the time. They have to always be on. They have to always have the answers. They can't be curious and ask questions. They have to give direction, be the captain all the time, which
Yeah.
is not a sustainable model.
Mm-mm.
It's
And I
not a
think,
sustainable model.
mm-mm. And I think also when you're talking about the Gen Z piece, I think the ability to talk about that we all fail, that failure is part of life, is failing forward, it's how we learn, and to be able to, as a leader, own it when we screw up and
Yes.
name it and be able to say, yeah, I can see that I could have done that differently. Thank you for sharing that with me. I want to do better. I had an experience fairly recently that, hasn't happened in quite a long time, but I was
Hmm.
really not successful at teaching something. And I had to go to the group and say, look, I get it. Like, this did not go the way I wanted it to. I really
Hmm.
always want to create safety so that people really want to be coached. And that didn't happen.
Mm.
So I think sharing my being able to own that I didn't live up to my own values actually made the group trust me,
There
so
you go.
that's part of what happens.
Absolutely.
It's counterintuitive. You think admitting mistakes or failures is going to, catapult you into more failure, but actually it often is the opposite.
Yep, and I wish, I try and get that out to people, especially folks who are new to leading, to kind of get you kind of set on that right path and not feeling like you have to be everything to everyone all the time, have all the answers, and never be wrong, and never make a mistake. How much pressure have we put on ourselves
Oh my God.
to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
As
especially,
parents too, we do that.
yeah.
Mm.
No, absolutely. And wanting to do good and wanting to do your best can also get wrapped up into that too. And we are killing ourselves trying to be our best selves, and we're not being our best selves in that way for sure. It's so interesting to think about it in that way, and that's something that I had to unlearn myself as a Type
So,
A person who's like, wanting to get things done and wanting to make sure that I've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's all the time. Having to step back and say, you know what? I can't do it all. I need to sometimes delegate. I need to sometimes collaborate. I need to sometimes take a step back. I need to sometimes take a pause. That took some work. It didn't happen overnight.
yeah, that's beautiful. I have two thoughts about that. One is for young leaders to be able to like name early on, we're all going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes too, to be able to say that up front so that we like set it up as part of the leadership path. Um, and then another piece that I was just thinking about is from an actor's world, actors do a lot of work on getting to that moment when you're on stage and being totally on and practicing getting out of whatever state that you're in that could be in your way. Or actors talk about the inner critic.
Mm.
And we all have that inner critic, that voice that's not so helpful to us. And how do we kind of shift out of listening to that voice and letting that voice sabotage us into being clear on our own intention, on our own belief in ourselves and our own mission? And so one of the things that actors allow themselves to do is find out like who are the inner supporters, who are the people inside of us who we can call on. So like, I remember learning a technique when I was going on stage that I would be feeling all this like, oh my God, I have to be good, I have to be good, I have to be good. And then I would practice imagining being a little girl in my grandmother's lap
Mm.
and how loved I felt and how at ease I felt. And that it's actually of value for us to know what are the situations where we felt really good that we can actually bring into our minds, and that it is valuable to have ways of nourishing ourselves. A lot of Buddhist teachers today are talking about how do we get out of that state. And one of the ways is to recognize that we're in a stressed out state. And then the next piece is to breathe and try to bring our brains into a more relaxed, positive state. But then a third piece is to nourish ourselves by choosing our thoughts and our emotions. So even when you're in a stressed out place, you can like close your eyes for a second and imagine a beautiful sunset on the beach that you have seen. Put yourself back there, and that will actually release oxytocin in your body to calm you down. And it's a way to actually make you more effective, to have those ways of knowing how you can get yourself to a more relaxed state so you can be there for people.
Ah, I love that. I think that's so great. And so, Belle, as we, look across the education landscape, the challenges and the possibilities, what's giving you hope right now?
You are, Bridget. I love the way
Oh,
that you're asking the questions and the way that you're thinking about this. And I love what you said before about dignity. I want to ask more about that, but
okay.
I'll try to answer this first, and then I want to ask you more about the dignity. The I think one of the things that's giving me hope is seeing my daughter teaching and talking to her generation and how much they care and how much they want to make a difference, and that they're actually willing to really look at the system and think about, are there ways we can, I mean, it feels like there's, in the Gen Z world, there's a real recognition of what's broken.
Mm,
And there's also like a willingness to look at how could we do things differently. And I
yes.
see that with young people across our culture. That gives me hope. And there, I feel like mission is really strong in the youth that I meet.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. So what questions do you have for me? I love
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah. So when you were talking about how in your work in restorative justice and that you've been thinking about the word dignity, and I was just wondering, how do you feel like you can, or how can you, or how do leaders bring that feeling of dignity back into teachers or into people they're working with?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. And for me personally, it was realizing is that self-worth piece and understanding that me as a person is different from me and my position and my job. And for
Mm,
a long time, that was really tied and really connected to who I was. As a single woman, like I didn't have a pet. And so every my self-worth was wrapped up in how well I did at work. And so, kind of separating it and knowing that, I am worth it no matter what
mm,
was super important for me to understand that also people, the other folks around me are worth it no matter what. And making sure that we're recognizing that in folks, making sure that they are feeling seen, heard, and valued, just the way that I want to be seen, heard, and valued as a person. And knowing that even if I make a mistake in life or in work, I am still the same good person.
mm.
And that's super important for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's making me think of when I was starting out in sort of the coaching world. I remember hearing this phrase, unconditional positive regard.
Mm.
And at first I thought, well, what if someone's doing something wrong? I can't give them unconditional positive
I think the same way.
regard. But what the difference is, I can still give them unconditional positive regard as a human being. And I can also recognize that even if I am, like, as a leader, having to let somebody go, thinking about, like, I am actually able to think about it like there's somebody who's going to do better somewhere else, like
Mm,
that thinking about the person. And as a manager and coach, I think that's another challenge for leaders today is we do need to do both. We need to manage for performance, but we also need to coach the individual and coach that person towards their own potential. And it can be confusing. You almost have to take off. And in fact, sometimes I advise people to take off the hat and say, look, I want to be your coach right now. I
yes,
really want to talk about your development outside of how this role, and that, I think that can be, and also people feel seen when you do that, if you do it
absolutely.
honestly.
Yep, for sure. So, Belle, before we go, talk about inspiring educators and what you're up to and what you can provide for folks and how people can get in touch with you.
Great. So Inspiring Educators is a leadership development nonprofit that I am really proud to have started about a dozen years ago. And we've been working in both charter and district across the country, working mostly with leader level, but all across schools. And we have both programs and individual coaching. So the programs are Leading with Presence, a program around communication skills, a program around these different roles we talked about. We have a whole program, Leading in Challenging Times.
Mm,
We have programs for leadership teams. We have programs for whole schools. We have programs for cohorts of leaders. And you can get in touch with us through our website, inspiringeducators.org. Sarah has been on the show too. She's our
she
wonderful.
has, absolutely. She's awesome.
So we are at the moment in a whole bunch of schools in Boston, New York, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. We've also done work in rural school leadership organizations with Teach for America. And we feel really privileged to work with such a wonderful group of leaders across this country. So
That's awesome.
really proud of doing this work and continuing to do this work. And it's we are living in a world where there are challenges around Title I, what's going to be happening. There are dangers of not having enough funding for professional development. So that's something that we are working with day by day, trying to figure out how are we as an ecosystem going to continue this work if the funding dries up.
Yes, very important, very important. So also your book, Leadership Presence, tell people where they can find that.
Oh yeah, Amazon Leadership Presence: Dramatic Techniques to Reach Out, Motivate, or Inspire. And
Awesome.
the book really does take you through the 4 different areas that I
Yes.
started out talking about, and gives you lots of techniques. And there's exercises in the book. A lot of the exercises that we teach in workshops are also in the book, so you can kind of learn on your own.
Awesome. Excellent. And finally, so what's one thing you hope listeners carry with them from this conversation today?
Oh, well, it's been so fun talking to you, Bridget. So
Oh,
thank you so
thank you.
much. I guess, I think the thing we've been talking about the most is being real and being human, and, not hanging your humanity at the door, but sharing with people how much you care about them when that's the case, letting people feel seen, heard, and valued, and then sharing yourself. Like, what is it that makes you get up in the morning and do the work you do? And, not to be a lonely person in just sitting in your office, but really
Yeah,
be
on an
helpful.
island.
Yeah.
Can't be on an island.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a wonderful way for us to end. Thank you so much, Belle. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I really appreciate you and spending time with us today. It's such a valuable conversation to have. And so hopefully in the new year, people feel like they can start to tweak some things and do some things a little bit differently. They don't have to kind of change who they are and change everything in the moment, but taking some small steps to move forward, to be a little bit more present and aware, I think is the goal, right?
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much, Bridget. It's such a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you for what you do and having these conversations, and the work you're doing with restoring people to their dignity and to the possibility of living the way we want to live in this world.
Ah, thank you so much. And thank you all for pulling up a chair at the table today. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about or maybe something to even try out in your own community. If you're enjoying the table, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave us a comment. It really helps more people find us. And as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time at the table. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Table Podcast Series. Is your student life program delivering on your mission? Our new K-12 student life assessment moves you beyond anecdotes to evidence-based decisions. Through comprehensive stakeholder surveys and expert analysis, you'll get concrete insights across 8 essential dimensions of student life, from culture and wellness to staff effectiveness and resource allocation. We're seeking founding partner schools to be the first to experience this transformative assessment process and help shape the future of student life evaluation. Today's episode was hosted by Bridget Johnson in conversation with Belle Halpern, produced and edited by Andrew Sigmund, and music by PremiumBeat.com. For any questions, contact information can be found in the episode description, and, as always, thanks again for listening.